Welcome back to the homestead and another exciting episode here at the Everything Garage Project. So let's start with a little bit of an update on the Everything Garage Project as a whole before we dive into today's work. So inside here, not a lot has changed, but a couple things we did get finished off are the electrical. This was a big addition for us, so now we can close up that trench outside and get the yard cleaned up, and we upgraded service to the house. The second major thing we've done in here is finish all the framing around the garage doors. So we had to do some specific framing up the edges, as well as along the header to support all of the garage hardware like the spring and the assembly and the tracks. And that just gives a nice sturdy backing for when our installers come to put these garage doors in place. On the back corner of the garage, where we're gonna have that climbing wall, we've got some bracing set in the walls, and that's just gonna give a little bit of extra support when we go to install this home gym. Alright, so moving outside, this is where the majority of our changes have occurred. So first and foremost, we got the entire garage wrapped. Now in this case, we just used standard DuPont Tyvek, nothing fancy. But the other big change out here is we've got all the windows and our door in place. And we'll throw up a quick episode maybe a little bit later on how we went about installing these windows with a nailing fin. So the other major change is the roof has been shingled, and that really gives us a closed-in garage. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna throw you up there so you can have a look. Oh, almost dropped you. So you'll notice a few things that we've done up here. We've just used standard black architectural shingle. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna show you from a little bit higher up. As I mentioned earlier, they're more or less a standard asphalt shingle. In this case, they are what's called an SDS, or a laminated rubber shingle. So that asphalt shingle is laminated with a bit of a rubber and fiberglass core to allow them to be a little bit more impact resistant. The other identifying feature is that we used steel channels in each of the valleys. This just helps the roof last a little bit longer, especially in areas where a lot of water could be moving through. Whew. Catch you as you're falling out of the sky. Anyways, it's time to get back and get into some work here before today gets real hot. And what we're going to be doing is finishing off some of the last bit of framing outside before we can do the soffits and fascia. And in particular, we're going to be building those guys up there. Either a bird box or a soffit box. I've heard them called a whole bunch of different things, but what it does is it just squares off the end of the gable, allowing us to finish the soffits and fascia in a nice clean manner. Soffit boxes are finished off, which means it's time to actually move on to the soffits themselves. But in order to do these, we're actually going to make a jig to cut the soffits so that everyone can be exact, and we're not having to work with tin snips. We can actually do this with a skill saw on a plywood blade. So I'm going to make the top of the jig a little bit shorter, and you'll soon see what I mean by that. So it's easy to access and slide the soffit through as I'm working. Alright, so this next step, and the last step really, is the most crucial part of this jig. And whatever saw you're going to be using needs to line up perfectly with the edge of this wood. And you want to make sure that this cut is square, so that when you're cutting your soffits, they're all going to be square. So I've already squared up my rails to my plywood, and I'm going to square up my guide to my plywood as well. And that way I know every time I cut through this, as long as the soffit is nice and tight against here, it'll be a square cut. I'm going to replace my general framing blade that's in my skill saw right now with a plywood blade, and you'll see there, its plywood blade's got about 140 teeth, and I'm also going to install it backwards. So back when my dad taught me how to make a jig and cut soffits, this is how I was told to do it. Install it backwards, that way it makes more of kind of scraping of a cut through that soft aluminum soffit and not kind of that tearing that the teeth would normally do if they were going in the right direction. Nice clean cuts. And you can cut multiple sheets at a time. Okay, admittedly, it has been a couple of days since we filmed the first half of this video, which was getting those bird boxes done and making the soffit jig. But that's not to say we haven't gotten anything done over the last little while. So we have got a lot of the soffits finished off. So we have this side of the gable, wrap around the front, we've got this whole section of front done. And right now, we are working on the front gable above the double door. Now I didn't figure there was a need to show you guys 150 some odd linear feet of soffit install, so that's why I kind of went ahead and did a bunch of it without filming. But I figured for this front gable here, I'll walk you through my process, how I go about installing it. Now that's not to say it is the best way, the most perfect way, but it works for me and it gives a nice clean finished look. Alrighty, let's suit up for a good construction action sequence. So in the corner by the bird box, I don't like to make a complete cut and have two different pieces. I like to have one piece that extends through the 90-degree corner. And I do that by creating a notch out slightly less than 90 degrees. Now it's just a matter of cutting a whole bunch of soffits on that soffit jig and getting them stapled in place. So installing these soffits is is really quite easy. They've got kind of a tongue and groove system, so I'll show you the two different sides there. So this guy's got the groove, this is the tongue, and they just nest into each other, and then you staple them in place. It really couldn't be much easier than that. Well, that brings another exciting episode here at the homestead to an end. That's number 12 of the kind of vlog style, if you will. We got one more side left, but it needs to be non-vented according to code because we are within 3 feet of our property line. Thanks a ton for watching. We'll see you guys in the next one.